Hey y'all, it's me, Lakeisha Poole, author, speaker, and writing coach, and I am here with another edition of Work in Progress Wednesday. This is my weekly chat with you all, just updating you on what I have going on, and also going a little bit behind the scenes of the creative process, and also just a check in to see what you have going on as well. I've found that a lot of times I'm dealing with similar creative blocks that other people are dealing with. And sometimes the things that I share, they actually have absolutely nothing to do with writing a book or painting or whatever. It's really a life lesson. And today, I actually wanted to talk about something that I've touched on in the past, but I feel like I need to probably be a little bit more direct about this aspect of the creative process because I don't see a lot of people talking about it. I don't see a lot of folks preparing people for it. It's not something that I was prepared for. Even in my writing circles, we talk about it a little bit, but we don't really delve into it. And so I wanted to share with you guys about this topic today. As many of you probably know, one of the greatest actors that we have witnessed on the screen passed away this week, Michael K. Williams. I was a huge fan of his work. I was a huge fan of him as a human being because even though I didn't know him personally, I felt like he brought humanity to a lot of different roles, just like a lot of people. My favorite role was Omar from The Wire. And so what made that role so impactful was just the humanity that Mr. Williams brought to the role. You see a lot of times these characters who are neither inherently good or bad. They kind of play in this gray area, what I like to call the gray area. And the reason why I like those characters, the reason why I like those roles is because I feel like they're more realistic. We would like for this world to be black and white. We like to categorize people as good or bad, evil or bad, good or evil, right or wrong. And while I do think that there are some things that are absolutes, I think there are very few absolutes in this world. I believe that there are people who make good and bad decisions. I believe that there are people who have evil and good intentions. I don't like to classify or label people as that's a good person, that's a bad person. That's really dangerous because you are essentially labeling them based on limited information. You don't know everything about them. And so I feel like that was something that we saw Michael bring to all of these roles where he just showcased that dichotomy. He showcased those nuances and those challenges that these characters went through, and that's what makes them so realistic to us. And so it actually ties into what I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about today in regards to the creative process, because I was watching some old interviews with him, and he really dealt with a lot of challenges all throughout his life. But what stood out to me was just the issues he had with the inner critic in his head. So anytime you start doing something good, amazing, anytime you get a really great idea, anytime you step out into something that's different than your norm, you have an inner critic on the inside that's going to ask you questions like, well, why would you do that? Why would somebody listen to you? That's dumb. That's stupid. It's that voice, right? I talk about it as fear in my book, Faith Beats Fear, it's a form of fear. And we all have that inner critic. And I think when we see artists who bring it every single time, when we see writers, when we see athletes, when we see performers, when we see people who have a natural gift, who have a natural talent, something that quote unquote comes easy to them, which that's not fully true. We make these assumptions about their process, but what I have learned in my life, especially with this book that I'm working on right now, and what I see in a lot of these artists and a lot of these performers, you have to go through a lot. It is hard. It is challenging. Even if it's something that you enjoy, even if it's something you're passionate about, to embody a character that is going through depression, that is going through dealing with drug use and dealing with all of these demons, you kind of got to deal with your own. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge that nobody talks about. That's the thing that nobody prepared me for. You know, when I first started writing, and my stuff isn't like incredibly deep and dark, but I like to write about real people going through real things. And so when I wrote, for instance, my Christmas story, which I'm like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. It's going to be so lighthearted, right? And it was for the most part. But my character had a huge issue with forgiveness, particularly self-forgiveness. And so when I had to go there, I had to put myself in her shoes. I had to try to figure out what could you possibly do to make you want to stay away from home for over a decade? And what does that feel like to carry that weight for 10 years? 10 years plus of basically changing your whole life based on some traumatic experience. And so when I watched these interviews with Michael talking about his inner critic and how some of these roles brought up past issues that he thought he dealt with, my heart really went out to him, because I think that's what a lot of artists do, and nobody even understands what they go through. I mean, I have seen where some actors will mention, oh, I had to get therapy after that dark role, because they just become enveloped in the process. And this is the reason why I like talking about, well, I don't like talking about it, but this is the reason why I talk about it. This is the reason why I talk about the spiritual aspect of creativity, because most people want to talk about the technical stuff. Okay, how do I paint this way? How do I write these words that way? How do I do this? That's what they want to know about. When people come to me asking me for advice, they're like, well, how do I write a book? And there was a time when I was very like automatically encouraging, and I have started to back away from being automatically encouraging, because I do believe that everybody has a story. I do believe that everybody has the potential to tell a good story. However, I can't sit here and definitively say that I believe that everybody has the spiritual fortitude to tell that story. And this isn't a matter of you, one person being weak or weak-minded or anything like that. It is a fight. It's a fight. Some days I don't want to fight. That's why it's taking me so long to write this book that I'm working on, because I'm dealing with this family that has generational issues. They're dealing with generational traumas. They're dealing with unforgiveness. They're dealing with feeling worthless. So there's this sense that I'm not good enough and I'm not worth, they're dealing with all these different things. And guess who has to deal with that stuff right along with them? I do. I have to revisit those moments in my childhood or when I was a teenager, when I thought I was so ugly. I'm the ugliest person in the world. I have to revisit those memories. I have to revisit those moments in my life when, as an adult, I made decisions that I thought were really good and really smart, but were based on very, very flawed information. And so when you see these creative folks out here being passionate and creating realistic roles and creating books that just make your heart flutter, make your stomach flutter, that make you go, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. When you see all that, that is a level of work that is beyond just showing up and shining, and that's one reason why I always admire artists or people who give their all, because I know they had to go somewhere and they came back. They came back, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so thankful for that. I'm so grateful and thankful for the times that I may have written something, or I may have done something or gone through something and was able to capture it in words. And even though I went back, God, was able to care for me and help me see just not only how far I've come, but the lessons I've learned and how I've grown and how he was there with me back then, just like he's here with me now. And so if you are someone who is in transition or considering doing something new, again, it doesn't even have to be something artistic. It could be moving somewhere. It could be changing jobs. It could be doing something with your family. Anytime something different and new and possibly life changing in a good way presents itself, that inner critic comes up. And we have to learn how to navigate that voice. We have to learn how to distinguish that voice between our voice and what's real. It is so easy to listen to that voice. We just readily believe that voice over any type of positive thoughts that are going around in our minds. And so there's another video with Michael encouraging a group of young boys to affirm themselves as kings. And it may sound silly or like woo-woo type stuff, but affirmations or declarations are so important. I talk about this all the time about the power of words. Use Victoria's language. A lot of times I'm doing this, y'all are doing this, I'm repeating my inner critic. I verbally affirm what my inner critic says about me. Instead of saying, nope, that's not true. I'm not that person. I'm actually very talented. I'm a good writer. Well, what if this happens? What if you get a bad review? My books aren't for everybody, but my books are for somebody. And for those people that my books are for, it's going to be an amazing reading experience for them. And so you almost have to begin to rewire your brain and change those habits where that inner critic, the voice just gets louder and louder. And so for those folks who are in transition, first of all, don't be surprised when the inner critic pops up. Don't let it catch you off guard. Go ahead and think, okay, I'm probably going to have some doubt. I'm probably going to have some fear. But is it accurate? Is it real? Let me sit down and evaluate the facts. Can I really do this? I like to call it interrogating your fear. Just ask questions. It's asking you all these questions about how how are you going to do that? Why would you want, you ask questions right back. Because I just don't want folks entering seasons of opportunity without having some sense of defense. So having some defenses around you so that you can fight back against that voice. And if you are writing a book that it may not even seem like a dark topic to you. If you're writing a book about kids being bullied or anything like that, you're going to have to go back. And so I want you to be prepared for that. One of the reasons why I wanted to write Faith Beats Fear first, well, when I say first, that wasn't my first book, but I had a lot of different ideas I wanted to write about. But one reason why I put Faith Beats Fear up before those things was because I feel like if I'm going to teach people how to do certain things, I need for them to understand how to navigate fear. I need for them to understand this is what fear sounds like. This is the voice of fear. You need to have a system in place. When you hear that voice, when you hear that language, whoop, that's fear. These are the steps I need to take to get out of here, to get away from here. And so for all of my artists out there, for all my creatives, whatever you're working on, know that it is needed. This world needs some good words right now. We need some really good stories. We need some really good fiction stories. Fiction stories can be life-changing. A lot of times when we think about nonfiction or reading stuff that's based on real life, that's valuable. I appreciate it. I learn a lot. But when you sit down and read fiction, it is a different experience. You step into the shoes of those characters. And so it's such a needed creative outlet for many of us. And I hope that you can be a good steward of that. And being a good steward of that includes you really making sure from a mental health, from a spiritual health standpoint, that you have things in place to take care of yourself. That's why I take naps. I've been taking naps sometimes when I'm working on this particular book because um, it's just really heavy. It's not a depressing book, but I definitely want to understand how my characters arrived at this point where they're acting the way they acted. And you know what? It goes back to things that their mom did and how their mom was taught. And it just goes back through a lot of the history or this historical trauma that they have experienced from generation to generation. And so I'm doing all this research about, you know, different things that happened during slavery times, that happened to my ancestors, and it's a lot to digest. That information may very well not even make it in the book, but it helps me to form these characters that feel real, and they become real people in a way. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share about as far as the work in progress I have going on in understanding what it's like to have a work in progress. So when you feel tired, when you feel sad, when you feel down, especially if you have a history of depression or anxiety, I don't want to scare you away from pursuing from creative pursuits, but at the same time, I want you to be prepared for those moments so you know that that's what's happening. It's not that this isn't the right thing for you. It's not that you're not talented. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that's your inner critic talking. And you can name your inner critic. I name mine. I call her by name so that I'm like, you need to settle down right now because I'm not trying to hear that. So that's another quick and easy way that you can begin to address some of those things as you do your work. And I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you guys get a chance to maybe even check out some of Michael's work and just his approach, and just understand him as a person. I don't want to just look at him as an actor. I think that was something that kind of bothered. No, I don't want to say it bothered him. I don't know the man, but I'm just dissecting his interviews, right? But even for him and his creative process, sometimes he felt like he got lost in the roles. And so in some ways, his art was a sacrifice. And I'm grateful that I got to witness it. I'm sad that it cost as much as it did. So again, that gray area that I mentioned earlier, that's what most of us, we live in these gray areas. And so in the comments, let me know what you're working on. Let me know if you've ever felt any of these experiences where, say you're working on something and that inner critic is just yapping away. Won't shut up. Always got something to say. So if you've had any experiences with an inner critic, let's talk it out. Let's talk about it in the comments. And I'll see you guys next week on Work in Progress Wednesday.